Hello, and welcome to the Rugby Through the Leagues podcast. This podcast wants to shine a light on rugby that is not shown in the mainstream media. I am Carl. I'm an avid rugby fan and regularly injured player. Thanks for joining us on the next instalment of Rugby Through the Leagues podcast. We want to say a massive thank you to everyone that's been following our socials and supporting this journey so far. We'd love to get more feedback from you on the topics discussed and also guests you'd like to see on the pod. This week, we have another great guest on. We've managed to catch up with Liam Perkins, who has had an illustrious career through the National League Rugby. Now player-coach at Petersfield RFC, we were able to discuss Liam's journey through his rugby career, which saw him part of the Ealing team that got promoted to Nat 1. Also, whilst playing at Worthing, Liam got to see firsthand the Quins development system and current and future internationals development. One current England international took half a season to show his true potential at Worthing, but after that Christmas, Liam actually turned around and said he felt sorry for the players that this international came up against. Before the interview, we want to run through the scores from this weekend's Papa John's Community Cup finals, which were played across the country with games played at Twickenham, Six Ways, Shaftesbury Park and DMP. One thing that I will say, these scorelines have taken a little bit of time to compile, as in usual rugby fashion, the social media presence from the RFU for all results was pretty lacking. However, we got there in the end, and it looks to have been some amazing games over the weekend. So we start off with Twickenham. So on the 11th, we had the Regional 1 Championship final, which saw Heath take on Barnstable. That ended on a 35 all draw, which Heath won on first try scored. So kind of a weird way to end a final, but I'm sure due to timings of all the other games around it, there was a reason behind that. Regional 2 Championship was played between Northampton Old Scouts and Southend Saxons. Southend Saxons won 26-35, which, looking at their social media, means they've won the quadruple this season. So what a season for Southend Saxons by the looks of it as well. Next game was Counties 1 Championship. That was played between Long Levens and Widnes. Long Levens won 25-19. Counties 2 Championship was played between Brunel University and Old Rutlandshires. Old Rutlandshires won 41-43, so another close game there by the looks of it. On the Sunday at Twickenham, the Women's Championship playoff was played between Thurrock and Cheltenham Tigers. Cheltenham Tigers run out 42-10 winners. The Women's Intermediate Cup was played between Lichfield and Albanian second 15. Old Albanians won 12-7. The Women's Junior Cup was played between Sheffield Tigers and Thurrock second 15. Thurrock ran out 36-14 winners. The Counties 3 Championship was played between Old Elthamians against Wigan, and Old Elthamians won 45-22. So over at Six Ways on the Regional 1 plate was played between Oundle and Wirral. Oundle won 20-12. The Regional 1 Shield was played between Leek and Stoke-on-Trent. Stoke run out 34-17 winners. Women's Intermediate plate was also played between Workington Zebra Finches against Westcliff. Workington come out 22-10 winners. Women's Junior plate was played between Haldon and Peterlee. They played Oxford Harlequins. Oxford Harlequins run out 59-26 winners. Up at the DMP over the weekend, there was the Regional 2 North Plate was played between Moulton and Norton versus Lutterworth. Lutterworth come out 41-28 winners. The Counties 1 North Plate was played between the Old Winians against Bradford Salem. Bradford won 54-41. I believe that is now Bradford on for the treble. They get to play in the Yorkshire Plate this weekend, or the weekend coming, I believe. Counties 2 North Plate was played between Ashbourne and Ripon. Ripon won 31-14. Counties 3 North Plate was between Wallsend and Tupton. Wallsend run out 26-5 winners. Regional 2 North Shield was played on the Sunday between Keswick and Olney. Keswick won 2017. The Counties 1 North Shield was played between Peterborough Lions and Beverley. Beverley won 58-33. Counties 2 North Shield was between Dinnington and Huntington and District. Dinnington won 72-24. Counties 3 North Shield was played between York RI and Ashton Underlyme. Ashton come out winners on 35-28. The remainder of the games were played over at Shaftesbury Park, held on the Saturday, the Regional 2 South Plate, which Drybrook took on Reeds Weybridge. Reeds run out 42-29 winners. The Counties 1 South Plate was played between Kingsbridge and Twickenham, with Kingsbridge winning 36-28. The Counties 2 South Plate was played between Harrow and Smiths Rugby. Smiths Rugby won 31-29. Counties 3 South Plate was played between Widden Old Boys and Worth Old Boys. Worth Old Boys won 53-14. On the Sunday, the Regional 2 South Shield was played between Gravesend and Newbury Blues. Newbury ran out 25-8 winners. The Counties 1 South Shield was then played between Midsummer North and Ashford. Midsummer North won 39-38 with a last-minute kick to decide that game. The Counties 2 South Shield was then afterwards, with Cirencester playing Saracens Amateurs, with Saracens running out 44-16 winners. The Counties 3 South Shield was then played between Old Glenonians and Cranley, with Old Glenonians winning 22-21. So, as you can see from some of those scorelines coming across, it's been an absolute phenomenal weekend for the Papa John's Community Trophy winners and also the losers to get the opportunity to play in some exceptional stadiums out there. So, no further ado, let's get to the interview with Liam Perkins and discuss his journey throughout rugby. We have Liam Perkins in today for our special guest on Rugby Through the Leagues podcast. Liam, thank you for coming on, mate. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, it's good to be on.
Obviously, we go through some normal questions on the podcast. Obviously, a little bit intro from yourself, how you got into rugby, where you've been, what you've done, and then we'll sort of delve a bit further as we go along, mate.
Yeah, no worries.
So, what got you into rugby? How did you get into it? Where did you start the journey, and where's the journey taking you?
So I started at would have been probably under sixes, so the youngest age group you can start at. Down at Gosport Park for Gosport Fareham.
Yeah.
So a slightly larger child growing up. So my parents thought rugby would be a good sport to get me into. No one in my family had been rugby people at all, so they were sort of stepping into the unknown a little bit. It really just started with an idea to let me blow off a little bit of steam. So I say, especially being a bit of a bigger child when I was younger. So yeah, that's where it started. I stayed with Gosport from all the way through the minis up until the end of Colts. So I'll say about 12 or 13 years or so. All through the age groups of Gosport. Made a couple of first team appearances for Gosport in my last year at Colts.
Was that under the Wellesley era?
It was. Yeah. I mean, I had the privilege of playing with my my coach Di Whitehead, who I
what a man! What a hero!
Coached me all through the age groups. And then he was still playing long after I left. Actually, probably he was still playing when I made my first team debut. So that was a nice thing to have done. For Gosport, to be honest.
Yeah, he's a legend, Di. He
certainly is. Yeah,
I think he still had the occasional run out now. I think he still laces his boots up here and there. So after the Gosport, then what happened? What happened there? Did you get approached, or did you think actually I could probably make a move here, or was there?
So I had no ambitions whatsoever to ever really sort of play any national league stuff, or even any ideas of being paid to play rugby at any level. I didn't really think that was a viable sort of option for me, having not played in any academies or anything like that. It's a little bit isolated down on the south coast of Gosport, no real academies around. Didn't go to a school which even played rugby, so was no real sort of pathway for me, and I didn't really ever really see that as an option. It wasn't even a consideration. I was playing county under-20s at the time, and my coach, Mike Marchant, who's Joe Marchant's dad.
Oh, right,
yes, he asked me to come up to Newbury for pre-season training, where he was a second team coach at the time. And if I'm honest, I spent the pre-season just doing a lot of running and holding bags for the first team boys. They were level 2 at the time before it was a championship, but in effect the championship before it was a professional league. So I just sort of thought, well, yeah, I'll see how I go now. Really enjoyed the training, got really fit, played some sort of had the expectations of playing some second team stuff with them. I then get a phone call on the Friday evening before the first league game, which was away at Cornish Pirates, saying we've had two boys drop out, Liam. You need to be on the coach in half an hour. So
what, from Gosport? So you had to get from Gosport to Newbury, which is rough for anyone that doesn't know, is roughly an hour's journey, really, isn't it? So did you make it? Did you make it?
Just about, yeah. And all the stuff in the kit bag, and then down to Penzance.
That's a
on
proper
Friday,
shift.
And then made my debut against Cornish Pirates away.
Wow.
My last adult rugby game being Fareham away. It would have been level 7 probably. And then three months later playing level 2 away at Cornish Pirates, which was a little bit of an eye opener, shall we say?
How did that game go? How was the step up?
I can't really remember, to be honest.
Really?
It was a bit of a blur. I do remember everyone being a lot bigger than me. I've always been very tall, but I was probably about 2 stone lighter than I am now. So I don't really know how I coped. It was definitely a baptism of fire. I played with some pretty handy players down there. Because like I say, it was when Newbury were a pretty tidy outfit. And that's when it really started. To be honest, I didn't feel massively out of place. And that's when I sort of thought, well, maybe there might be something in it for me, really. Playing at that sort of level, earning a little bit of money, doing the thing I love. So, that's where it all started, really.
So, what season what year would that have been?
So that would have been 16 years ago, or
2008?
15 years ago.
2008, 2009?
Yeah, probably the 08-09 season, probably, yeah.
So how much were you sort of taking in your pocket?
I was very naive. I was very, very naive then. I think I was probably getting £100 a game. But when I
how much was left behind the bar as well, though?
Well, yeah, exactly. when you total up how much it costs when you go away, paying for a bit of food here, a couple of beers here, it probably cost me money.
That's it.
But I say I was so naive about what rugby players got paid at that level at that time. There was probably players earning pretty much their full-time wage playing for that team at that time. And I was there sort of picking up a little bit of pocket money. So
what actually happened to Newbury then? How did that sort of come to an end?
So we got relegated that year. I probably played 8 or 9 games that year, which I was happy with. I went on loan to Havant for the second half of the season that year. But Newbury actually got relegated. They finished 5th bottom, and it was the year they restructured to the actual championship. So I think they went down 5th bottom, so really unlucky.
Right.
And then soon after that, Vodafone, who was the big sponsor, pulled all the money. So things went downhill quite quickly for the club after that. I carried on and played another 2 years for Newbury after that in National 1 and National 2 as well. So I played for them for 3 years and got relegated 3 times. So it wasn't easy. But
not ideal, mate. But so after that, then after the cascade through the leagues, by the sounds of it, where you ended up over at Worthing, is that correct?
I went to Worthing. I was recovering from an injury, and so I knew the coach Will Green down there, who got me across. I played a couple of games, didn't really have much of an impact. That was towards the end of the season. Didn't particularly enjoy my that sort of first spell there for whatever reason, and that's when I was approached by Ealing Trailfinders, who were doing very well in National 1 at the time. And they come in for me that off season, signed for Ealing, which was a huge commitment for me because I was living down in Portsmouth and travelling up to West London 3 times a week. And got approached by Ealing. I thought, why not? Just give it a crack. I love playing that level. I thought I want to carry on doing it. So have that opportunity was amazing. And to be honest, that probably the 2 years I spent at Ealing, I probably learned 90% of what I've learned in rugby in those 2 years. The coaching was fantastic.
So that was potentially 2011, 2012 season? Was that roughly?
Yeah, it would have been around then, yeah.
So you've done a couple of years there. Was that a couple of years that they were stuck in that one, or did that?
So we finished second in the first national one year, and then got promoted the second year. So I didn't play as much in the second year because they ploughed a hell of a lot of money and had some amazing players there. So probably played 10 or 12 games in the first year, and then probably about the same the second year. But
what an experience still.
I was part of the squad which went up to the championship, which was pretty special.
I can imagine, yeah.
And then from there, then it was a decision about professional rugby and all that entails.
So obviously, what made you decide? Obviously, because everyone that probably knows you went back to Worthing after the Ealing promotion, correct?
Yeah.
What made you make that decision? Was it because you didn't think rugby had that long-term viable option as a career, or was there other doubts within your mind? Or obviously, as we discussed, you got a family. Did that come along at the same time?
No, so I was given the opportunity to stay on for another season, but the director of rugby at the time was quite clear with me that it would be very much a squad player.
Right.
Likely make some British and Irish Cup appearances if I was lucky, but outside of that, pretty much a squad player.
Right.
But the expectation on training and attendance was the same as the professional members of the squad. So when I sort of totaled up what the sort of package would have been for the games I was playing, the money was, I wouldn't have afforded my mortgage, to be honest.
Right, okay.
The level of, I could have taken the punt for a year and said I was a professional rugby player.
Yeah.
But that's probably would have been a name only.
That doesn't pay your mortgage, does it?
Yeah, exactly. And I think I was quite realistic at the time when I was looking at the players around me, thinking I don't think that I'm good enough to make that step and make a real crack at it. I did know that National League was probably my level.
Your ceiling,
Yeah, I was a decent National League player. So I took the decision. I approached Worthing myself.
Okay.
As a sort of localish National League club to Portsmouth, and ended up spending 10 years there. So very much enjoyed my second stint.
Exactly, because so how quickly were you become club captain over at Worthing as well? Correct. So was that a fairly instant, or was that a couple of seasons in?
I think that was 3 seasons in, or four seasons in maybe. But I spent 5 years as club captain in 2 stints.
Right.
There, but it was probably my 3rd or 4th season I become club captain.
Okay.
Held that for 4 years.
Nice.
Gave it up for a couple of years and then took it back again for my final year there. So
what? Because the captain before wasn't doing a good enough job compared to you, or
yeah, I don't want to name any names. But, yeah.
Drop those clangers in here.
No, we had a new coaching team come in under Jordan Turner Hall from Quins, and he really sort of shook things up and got the boys playing some pretty tasty rugby, and that was the last 2 years at Worthing, and definitely my 2 most enjoyable years of rugby under Jordan. We played some fantastic rugby, had some great players there.
So obviously you've now you're over at Petersfield, player coach. Is that the official title, or is it more coach? Or
no, it was always going to be a couple of years of transition. That's how I sold it to my missus anyway.
Fair enough. That's the easiest way.
I want to get into coaching because I can't see myself not being involved in rugby in some capacity. So, but I did feel I had a couple of good years left in me at National League, but I had a really good opportunity from Petersfield. And I saw it as a way of transitioning from the playing to the coaching via player coaching.
It's a great setup. It's a great setup as well as Petersfield, because you've got a great platform of players of that level. Is it you just got promoted as well? Correct.
We just got up to level 6.
Level 6. Yeah. So at level 7, they're a very good. They're a very, very good side. Could potentially be classified more of sort of a yo-yo team. They're very good at being able to get up to the top and kind of drop top.
They've gone between sort of level 7 and 8 quite a lot through the years. This is we've gone up into level 6. That's the highest the club's ever been, which is fantastic for the club. But when I was approached to go there by Jason Ford, was sort of trying to put the coaching team together. I set up a meeting with the chairman, Stu Barden, who is the most supportive bloke I've ever met in my life.
Really?
He's fantastic. And just getting the feeling from the chairman, Fordy, and then knowing the players they had there, I knew that we'd be able to do something this year.
Yeah.
You probably call them underachievers when you look at some of the boys they've got in their squad. I look around, I think there's half a dozen lads who wouldn't look out of place at a Worthing with the right guidance. So knowing that, I was sort of pretty sure I wasn't setting myself up for a fall. So I knew there was a lot of good things in place that we could have a real crack at it this season, and obviously we've done very well.
So how many players did you have to recruit, or did you did you have a blank canvas? It was a case of like the lads knew whether they were coming or going. It was, or you come in, you assessed everyone, stood back and said, actually, I know this player could do this, or actually I need to go and bring a load of lads across and start.
So before committing, like a lot of, like I say, I don't know if you know Jason Fordy. He has done a lot of stuff in the local rugby, a few clubs in the local area. Respect that guy massively. And when he was saying to me, if we get X, Y, and Z in the door, we'll do very, very well.
Okay.
I trusted his judgment on that. There was a lot of returning players who hadn't played rugby for a season or two at Petersfield for whatever reason.
Right.
So we worked really hard on getting those boys back in the door and back engaged in the club. We had a couple of lads come across from Worthing who were sort of coming towards the end of their playing careers, like myself, which obviously bolstered and gave us some great experience to go along with the Petersfield boys, because it's mainly Petersfield lads. There's the vast majority of Petersfield lads in that squad.
It's kind of like it's an isolated people that don't know Petersfield as well. It's kind of it's in the sticks to an extent. It's kind of on the outskirts of Portsmouth, in it, but it's not quite far enough up the A3 to be its own sort of entity. So you kind of grab players that probably can't get into, haven't sort of set up potentially, and you got lads that will have to come across as well. So it kind of creates its own group and its own ethos in itself at Petersfield, and you can see that through the age group system as well that they've got up there. They've got a really good they've got a new stand open. Is that correct? I've moved away a little while ago.
The thing with Petersfield is like they're definitely doing things the right way, getting the infrastructure in place. So the facilities there are great. The gym's brilliant. They've got four floodlit pitches. The ground staff are brilliant. The pitches are playable almost always.
Wow.
The facilities for that level are fantastic, and that's something I really try to drill into the lads this season. Is like they don't really know how lucky they are, because there's clubs at level 3 and 4 who could only dream of having facilities like that. So they've got a really good basis in place, and if we can just sort of keep the sort of buzz going that we got in the squad at the moment, coupled with the facilities they've got, the vision of the chairman, we want to make it an attractive place to play. We want to be able to attract people and make it a more successful club, because they've got everything in place to do that, with or without me, to be honest. But
so go on. What is the target? Where is Petersfield going to go? Are they going to be trying to compete against the likes of Havant and push up towards the national leagues? Is that what the chairman's got, or is he just building a well-established club within the leagues?
Realistically, they're a community club, which is fine. That's absolutely fine. It's the sort of idea that the chairman gave me was he wants to be one of the best clubs in Hampshire. So when I look at until Havant got promoted, what level was the best club at Hampshire? Okay, well, they're level 5.
Yeah.
So then I'm thinking, that's 2 promotions from where we started at the beginning of the season just gone.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's outside of the realms of possibilities. Obviously, things will get harder. We'll have to, put different things in place to sort of compete at that level. But I don't think there's any plans to to go above that, because as soon as you got to level 4, you're into semi-professionalism and paying players. So that's a massive jump and a huge commitment and gamble for a club like Petersfield. And I don't think there's a desire for that. But if we can get to being considered, one of the most, one of the best and highest level Hampshire clubs, I think that would be mission accomplished.
Yeah, because the likes of Camberley, they've kind of gone on that little run as well. They kind of come out of obscurity and really they've put a couple of quid in, I think, and gone up through the leagues as well. East Grinstead did it previously, but that's all come tumbling down. But Camberley have gone on and sort of pushed on as well. It is doable in those leagues, but I think you've got, obviously, as you say, the chairman or whoever's backing the club's got to realise there is probably a point. And I think that's the downside to rugby as in the UK. There's teams that can get promoted out of, in football, you can go all the way up. You can get to like level 4, level 5. And there's the money, there's a significant money there to support those sort of clubs. Whereas rugby, it's the top 2 tiers at a push. And as you probably know, championship players and stuff, they can't even make it viable. As you said, it wasn't really a viable package for you to potentially become a championship player up at Ealing. So you don't get that depth of availability for top level rugby, which is a real shame, because clubs like Petersfield and Havant and stuff like that they could probably stick out and be that southern representative in the top of leagues, because we don't have that. As you said, Quins is the closest at the minute, or even Ealing's a lick, as you said. West London and Richmond's probably potentially the closest championship club in that sense as well. And it's
it's so difficult for clubs to take that step and that gamble, because I mean, when I was with Ealing, winning every week in National 1, they were getting 300 people to watch. And when you sort of think about what some of the players are probably getting paid there, they obviously have a money man. They did then. This is still the same guy, but like as a business model, it's not great when you're only getting a few hundred people through the door to pay. Like you can't really justify match fees for players.
No.
So yeah, it's obviously difficult. I've never blamed players who will take the money which is on offer to them at all, though, because like rugby career is very, very short. If you can earn a little bit doing something you love, then why wouldn't you? But I've seen so many clubs come and go in the national leagues through the years who, like we spoke about facilities at Petersfield, like some clubs who literally have nothing, haven't even got their own pitch or changing rooms, but they're paying players £500 a game.
Yeah,
and I sort of think, well, what's the priority for the club here? Like, you're never going to get the facilities in place if you're shelling out all your cash on players. Like, you need to get like some sort of base in place before doing that.
And I think Petersfield, as you said, they've kind of got that the right way around. I think Havant obviously had the maybe the luck of the draw. I might be selling that a little bit short, but obviously they managed to get the funding for their floodlit pitch, which probably saved them as a club to an extent, because playing away at Havant, it's in the middle of Lee Park, most of those pitches back in the day, but they were not the best maintained, and they probably lost a lot of games because of flooding, etc., because it was brought by the creeks. I think that floodlit pitch has probably allowed them to push on, and I think that's probably helped them really well as well. Yeah. But they've not kept that as a closed access, have they? To be fair, they allow that for a lot of clubs around.
So Havant, for me, like they have done things completely the right way. So they obviously had their fingers burnt and went down the leagues a little bit, having paid players for a time, and obviously played at a decent level when the leagues were first set up. But they've got all of the things in place now. Good facilities. They got great support off the pitch.
Yeah.
Good coaching set up. Great director of rugby there. They've created an atmosphere that makes players want to go and play there, whether they're getting paid or not. So like they've done brilliantly. I'm really happy to see them up in the national leagues now, to see how they get on and give that a crack. But they've definitely sort of built from the bottom up. That's the way it seems to me, looking from the outside.
Do you reckon they need a little bit of a rebuild for next season, or do you think they've got the depth of players there to really give next season a punt?
It's such an attritional league, so like 26 game season. I mean, it used to be 30 game seasons in National 2, but now it's 26, so it's a little bit less. it is such an attritional league. So like squad depth is huge.
Yeah.
If I'm honest, I don't know too much about their plans about bringing players in and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I think they're starting to offer some match fees for next season, so obviously that would be a bit of a draw to some players. Yeah, certainly. Like going up into that league, I know that it's going to be. It will be tough. Like it will be tough. Like I hope they stay up, but I'm sure it will be a difficult year for them. But they've got some fantastic players there. So if they can keep their squad fit, like I'm sure they'll do okay.
Yeah, because obviously they'll be coming up against Worthing next year as well, which is probably the closest local derby that you could probably get in that sort of region. Worthing have kind of dropped off a little bit compared to what as you said previously. Is that a change of personnel? Is there something more to that?
So there was a big. The coaches who were there for 2 years, my last 2 years. So the head coach Jordan was leaving. The director of rugby had left as well, and it definitely felt like a bit of a transition year.
Right.
It always would have been a transition year this year. That's part of the reason why I left. I'd done 10 years, over 180 games for the club.
Yeah.
Love the club, love the people there, but it sort of felt like the right time for me to
step aside
as well and let that transition happen, because for the best will in the world, I'm not going to be doing it forever.
No.
Other people need to take on that responsibility and leadership role in the squad. Yeah, it just felt like the right time because there's a lot of changes going on there that time, and in hindsight, sometimes I feel like I wish I would have stayed and helped him out a bit more this year, but then one old boy like me probably wouldn't have made any difference to the way they finished this year. So I've been down and watched them a couple of times this season, which has been good. Get down there whenever I can. But I think it was always going to be a transition year for them. We've changed coaches, DOR going. There's just a few changes going on around the club. So I think they'll be. I think they'll do much better next season. I'm sure they will.
Is that just? Do you think that's tweak? I know I'm probably putting you on the spot here a bit, but is that tweaks, or do you think there's a bigger problem at Worthing, or is it just a case of that sort of nucleus of player has sort of come to an end and they've not rebuilt earlier than they potentially needed to?
As I'm sure you know, like you can't buy experience.
No,
well, you can if you pay someone enough, but
not a nap too as well.
Exactly,
it depends.
But without, I'm not being big-headed here. But I left. My best mate Matt McLean left with me. Yeah. He's my sort of he's my co-head coach at Petersfield. So we both left.
Highest points scorer ever.
He's the all-time National League point scorer.
Yeah,
so that's some real pedigree. But
that's hard to replace.
Exactly. So you got first team captain leaving. You got National League all-time point scorer leaving at the same time. I don't think any amount of youngsters can replace like the experience in a squad like that. They've had a lot of young players playing this season who will be all the better for this season, though. There'll be several who will be much better players for that, and I'm sure they'll go on and have a much better year next year.
Yeah.
There's obviously a nagging feeling that I feel a little bit bad for having left them and then them doing so badly this year, but it's one of those things I couldn't hang on forever. So
I think you'd have probably felt worse by staggering that exit. Do you know what I mean? Like you'd have probably rather than you'd have felt more become of a coach. Do you think? Do you think that was an option? Do you think you could?
I was offered a player coaching role at Worthing, but having sort of played there for 10 years and been skipper, all the young players that have come through I'd known since they were 19 coming into, and I just didn't think that was probably the best way to start my coaching.
No,
to be around
it's
loads
hard
of people
to get that
who've known
message
me
across. Yeah,
exactly, because they've known me socially and all that sort of stuff. And whilst they might respect you as a captain, a coach is a completely different thing. So I did feel it was very important for me to step away for a couple of years at least and maybe go back in the future.
Well, there we go.
If they have me.
There we go. Headlines are all rewritten. Liam returns.
Yeah.
So I ask this to every guest. When you've played, obviously you've played to a very good standard as it is. So a lot of players have probably made it. Who did you play with that made it, and was it obvious? Like who's gone above? A lot of people have sort of said they know players that have played in the Premiership. obviously, if you're tapping around the Championship, I'm expecting sort of a World Cup winner, really.
So I can't give you a World Cup winner. I can give you a World Cup player, but not a World Cup
Perfect. Here
winner.
we go. Right.
So Joe Marchant for me, it wasn't immediately obvious. Like so,
Right.
he was on loan. He was on loan from Harlequins with us
Okay.
at Worthing for a season. Probably would have been 2018, something like that.
Oh, okay.
Maybe 2017, maybe.
Right.
So he would have been 19.
Yeah.
Ish. And the funny sort of connection is his dad, Mike, was my Hampshire coach growing up, and Joe used to come along and run the water on the Hampshire under 18s and under 20s.
That must have been the quickest water you've ever seen, was it?
Yeah. So he was at Worthing, and he was actually playing in the twos at the start of the season, believe it or not. And then towards Christmas time, second half of the season, I've never genuinely felt bad for an opposition before,
really?
Apart from when Joe was playing. He was literally just completely unplayable. He was, I don't know what happened after Christmas. The switch just flipped, and he was just completely outrageous. I've never seen anything like it at that level. Just completely unplayable. And then the season after that, he won Quinn's Young Player of the Year.
Yeah.
Played shed load of Premiership games, and obviously, he went on and played for England. So he was definitely the one who I knew at the end of that year that he's something special at this point. But it wasn't immediately obvious.
Didn't sort of turn up and in the white boots, and they kind of expected all of it. But
he's quite shy, to be fair.
Yeah. So what? So obviously Joe, decent player there. So anyone else that you sort of played with?
So we were lucky at Worthing for maybe 6 or 7 years out of 10 that we had a really good link with Quins. So we'd have their first year academy boys would come down. We'd have 3 or 4 a season.
Yeah. Okay.
So probably out of 4 of them, 1 or 2 would then go on and play for Quinn's first team, or internationally. We've had the likes of Dino Lamb, who plays for Quinn's and Italy.
Yeah.
He was with us for a season.
Good player.
Very, very good player. Lovely lad as well.
Yeah.
Again, you knew he was going to go on. Like this 18-year-old, 19-year-old turning up, and I'm looking up at him. He's probably 3 stone heavier than me at 19 years old. You think this guy's got everything to be a proper player. I've been really lucky to play with a lot of players who've gone on to play a lot of first team games for Quins, which is probably one of the most enjoyable things of playing at Worthing, to be honest. To sort of see these boys coming through and then see them go on to do better things like Joe and Dino.
Have they still got that link, or is that a link that's possibly eased on a little bit that they haven't got that?
They had a few boys this year. They had a few Quins dual reg players this season again, which was good.
Any that we need to look out for the future?
No, I mean, he watched a couple of games, so I wouldn't like to comment on that. We had one a couple of years ago, Cassius Cleves, who I think in 2 or 3 years' time you'll know his name. Cassius Cleves, a winger for Quins. I think he could be something special in a couple of years.
English lad?
Yeah, he's English lad. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, he's pretty tasty.
That then leads on to, who did you play with that didn't make it but should have, and what's the story behind it, if there's a story behind it?
So when I was sort of thinking about this question, there's one guy who popped out straight away, a mutant of the second row at Worthing, called Charlie McGowan.
Right.
6'8", give or take, probably about 19, 20 stones.
Didn't need to jump in a line out by the signs.
No, just completely destructive. He was coming towards the end of his playing when I just sort of come to Worthing.
Right.
But he was a sort of traditional old school second row, completely uncompromising. Couldn't necessarily pass the ball with his left hand, but second rows didn't need to then, so it's fine. He's definitely one that I really, really wonder how he didn't end up, because he looks like a professional second row,
right? Plays
like a professional second row, got all the attributes. So I don't know if it's a motivation thing, he didn't want to, or he just wasn't picked up, just went under the radar.
Yeah.
But he's definitely one. He played for the Barbarians when he was at Worthing.
Oh, okay.
He played for England counties when he was at Worthing. This is all later on in his career. I think I'm pretty sure. So Will Green, he played a prop for England. He was Worthing's coach for a time,
right?
And I think it was Daily Mail column or something, and he had to select his all-time 15, and he put Charlie McGowan in.
Yeah.
second row. So it probably shows the sort of
what level he was at.
what level he could have been at,
Wow.
And he's a lovely, lovely man as well. Lovely bloke. Scary on the pitch, but
I can
I wouldn't
imagine.
say boo to a goose off the pitch.
6'8", you're hoping he ain't clearing you out of a ruck.
Yeah.
But so never got the story. Didn't know, sort of understood why he didn't make it.
No,
or think,
I don't know really.
Never quite asked.
There's you see a lot of players and you think there must just be. It's like a 1% thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you're not in the right place at the right time, you don't get picked up. If you're not fully committed to stuff off the pitch, like in the gym, you don't get the chance. It's really, really fine margins, I think.
Do you think rugby doesn't allow 1%? Is obviously a lot bigger in football because there's obviously probably a lot more leagues that are pro or at least a decent semi-pro. Do you think rugby doesn't offer that capability because of, well, obviously the Premiership's now ring-fenced at the minute for the 10 clubs. The Championship's been ring-fenced for this season, potentially next, depending on ground and capacity sizes. Do you think we're ring-fencing the English leagues a little bit too much to protect the old guard and not allow development?
I think because of the money issue, like you're relying on semi-professional rugby players or amateur rugby players to do stuff outside of their training nights. Yeah, you're asking for a lot of motivation, a lot of commitment from young lads. A lot of them who aren't getting paid to be putting in like hours in the gym, extra skill work, all this sort of stuff. And if they're not getting paid for it, it's like you've got to be realistic. They've got a job. Whereas so I don't really know what pathway there is unless you're in an academy. I don't think there really is one. You see the odd player like Alex Dombrent or whatever being picked up through university stuff, but
I think they had the eye on him for a long time before that, though, didn't they? With Domers, it wasn't like it was somebody that I think he'd already degreed and down an academy to go and do his degree. So I think he'd kind of already been in or around that scene, and they'd had enough of an eye on him to say this is where it wants to go. But as you say,
I think the something that they definitely do very, very well, in my opinion, is where they farm out the academy boys to National League clubs. Yeah. So most Premiership teams will have a link with a National 2 club, a National 1 club, Championship club. Right. National 2, we normally get the first year academy boys. Yeah. National 1, they get the second year academy boys. Yeah. And then hopefully they're becoming first team rugby players, unless they're real anomalies like Marcus Smith, who just goes straight in as a 19-year-old. Yeah. Into the first team. But I think that's definitely something which rugby does very well, is they get the nippers out to the National League stuff, learn their spurs a little bit, blood them in a little bit, playing against some horrible old players, learn the ropes. I think that's fantastic, but I don't think there's really much of a pathway for your bog standard semi-pro or amateur player, to be honest.
Yeah, nobody that's going to get plucked out of nowhere and sort of. I'd mentioned this in the podcast that's coming out with Si. Do you think rather than the LV Cup, do you think something similar to like an FA Cup style where, say, Saracens could go to Cornish Pirates or go to Worthing or have some sort of FA Cup style cup tournament that allows to open up a bit of accessibility to the bigger leagues? Okay, it will take a while for some of the clubs to not get battered every week, but do you think that would add something to the English game and allow other clubs to shoot for that star and aid development as well? Because players, as you said, players playing with better players makes better players. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much your club is new. As long as you've got experienced players that can help other players understand the game, and playing against players that's going to put them in a position that they learn from. Do you think that will improve?
I just think there's such a massive gulf between professional players and semi-pro. Yeah, purely for the amount of gym work the boys can do. I don't think that's a viable thing for rugby outside of professional going into semi-pro. I just don't. I think it's such a massive gulf because you got semi-pros who are doing Tuesday, Thursday nights, relying on them to do stuff on their own time, versus professionals who are in the gym for a living. Because I mean, if you have one team in, say, National 2, who suddenly have an influx of cash, get a load of good players in, paying some good money, they're beating teams in National 2 by 70, 80 points in the same league just because they've got a little bit of cash and they can get some better players in. So sort of times that by 10, I think, if you're asking for a National League club to play against a Championship club.
Or maybe an adapted version then. Maybe not the elite level, because of what about the academy sides of those elite level clubs? Do you think that would be a potential option rather than, as you say, completely like baptism of fire and throwing Saracens against Gosport? Do you know what? That sort of lunacy. But an academy,
I do think the Papa John's Cup stuff's pretty good.
Yeah,
I know they play the same levels throughout the country.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about sort of cup competitions, I think that's been a really, really good thing.
Is that the first year that's coming?
This is the second year.
Right.
This is the second year now.
What was it called last year? Was it?
I think it was still called. Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah. Papa John's Community Cup.
Yeah.
I think that's good. Like to get a bit of a buzz around the cup games, playing against some different clubs, that sort of stuff, and
getting a Twickenham as well always helps.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I think that's a really, really good thing. Rugby doesn't do many good things, to be honest.
No, I think we're kind of stuck in certain processes, aren't we? And it's trying to find a way out. And like me and Si discussed about before it come out in the general press, the Saudis or the Qataris coming and putting some money in. Something's got to pump money into rugby for it to be able to push forward across the globe, because we're missing a lot of opportunities to grow that because of the traditions, and we're probably of the same ilk. We love the traditions. We know they've got to be there, but we've also got to move with the times to make it accessible to as many, because the society's not the same as what it used to be. Like going on a rugby coach, I'm sure probably you coming back from your first game at the Cornish Pirates away, there's probably things that you probably try to forget still now to this day.
Yeah.
But rugby's still, we love those traditions, but we've also got to keep those away, move with the times a little bit, make it accessible to as many people as possible.
Well, I think the trouble is at the moment is rugby is definitely like an echo chamber. Like when you're in it, you think everyone loves rugby, everyone knows about rugby.
Yeah.
But in reality, hardly anyone knows anything about rugby.
Yeah.
So, like to grow the game and it's probably, like you say, making it more accessible. But it doesn't help that like to watch rugby on TV, it's all pay-per-view stuff. Like there's nothing like just switching your TV on for your casual viewer. Rugby's not on unless it's a Six Nations. So if you wanted to watch some Prem games, you got to pay subscriptions for that. And I know like that's the model that football follow, but they've got millions of people that subscribe to it.
Correct.
Whereas rugby, like if you want to grow it in the first instance, you got to make it as available in your face as much as possible, free, grow that following, get people enjoying it, and then try and garner some income off of it. Probably.
So I think they obviously managed to get some Champions Cup games and Challenge Cup games on Channel 4 and maybe ITV now, but nowhere near enough to, as you said, to make it accessible to somebody that accidentally clicks on Channel 4 on a Sunday afternoon and the game's on.
Yeah.
TNT are apparently going to make every Premiership game available next season. But obviously, as you said, part of a subscription. They can't be doing that on every... You can't make that as accessible by saying, well, this is now going to be every game. Are they going to put games on Monday nights, Tuesday nights? And then do you affect the fans that are going to the ground? Are you going to lose...
This is another issue as well. Is most of the people that watch rugby are involved in a rugby club in some capacity.
Exactly.
So you're either taking your kids down there, you're playing, you're coaching, you're doing something at the club. Those are the people that would go and watch the game. Yeah. But you're doing rugby stuff anyway.
I said this to Polly as well. I said to Polly, but does rugby follow what football's done? Lads that play football on a Saturday morning will go to, say, Fratton Park on a Saturday afternoon because the game's on Saturday morning. But Polly said that games are now adaptable, but that's brilliant. The games might be adaptable, but are the pitches, are the setups, are the clubhouses, is the traditions holding rugby back, moving the demographic that are going to watch a game or go and see a game from moving it to playing in the morning, because most of them are just going to see that as we know, more drinking time after the game.
Yeah.
So it's a hard balance to find. Do you move it to a weekday? But you then lose a lot of demographic, especially down Portsmouth way to Quinns on a Tuesday night, Wednesday night, any of that. Trying to get into South London, Twickenham is going to be hard enough as it is. And it's not cheap anymore. It's like the cost of living crisis. A lot of lads would have to probably leave work early, may lose a couple of quid. It's a really fine balance. And personally, I think the bubble's going to burst soon and a lot more rugby clubs are going to fall out of existence, which is a really scary place to be in as a rugby fan.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's obviously a bit of a crossroads. The game's definitely a crossroads because you don't want to lose. I personally wouldn't want to lose the traditions of rugby and what it means and the ethos of being part of a club and all this sort of stuff. It is very, very important for the game. But equally, if you want to grow the game, get more people watching, the casual viewers paying money on merchandise and going to see the games, then you need to have characters and people that are marketable and all that sort of stuff, at the highest level, which I think they are doing better at, the likes of Atoje, like Marcus Smith, like players like that are really marketable and, they got Nike sponsorships and all this sort of stuff. They're definitely a lot more like accessible.
I think Marcus Smith is probably more. I think Marrow's Marrow. I don't think he's one of them he's very outlandish in that sense. He's a very clever human being and he's able to articulate himself very well, but I don't think he's going to be like you've got the other end of the scale. You've got the Marlers, you've got the Haskells, and you've got other players that are going to stand out. And it's finding that balance because NFL, everyone sells the dream. Everyone's on the social media. Everyone. Do you think the media management of rugby is a little bit too controlling? And we've got to stay this very tradition
because you don't want to sell your soul to the devil as well, because a football player can't go on the tube and be pissed up after a game without getting photographed, mobbed, and all this sort of stuff. And it's do rugby players want that? Do professional players want
Billy V. He got tasered the other day. So.
Well, exactly. Like 99% of people would walk past a professional rugby player, even an England player, and wouldn't even recognise them. They could walk down the high street, and most people wouldn't even recognise them.
Yeah.
And then it's sort of like, well, would a professional want to be? Do they want to cross into that realms of being front and centre in the media all the time?
Yeah,
can't go anywhere without being paparazzi, all that sort of stuff. I don't know.
I think that's a hard balance, as you say, between making the game, because I think I saw a stat the other day. Rugby's obviously only professional for is it the last 30 years or something like that, or 20 years?
About that,
yeah. It's been professional for that period of time. But we haven't moved with it. It's still very amateur in that sense. It's got the professional label, but if you're running a business like this, you've got no hope from a business point of view. You'd have to maximise as much revenue as possible, and it just doesn't seem to have taken that step. We've put a label that these players are professional and they're looked after, and there's this and there's that. But as the actual business point of view, it doesn't seem to have moved forward because, as we've referenced back to, there isn't the appetite in the wider public. If you're part of the bubble, you think it's the biggest thing in the world, but rugby really isn't. There's sports like cricket and stuff like that. F1 potentially. There's other sports out there that people are more obsessed about than rugby, but because you're inside that bubble, you think it's the biggest thing in the world, and it's a brilliant sport and it brings so many people together and so many people from different avenues of life, and you make friends for life. But outside, people have got this tarnish. They're just drunken lunatics most of the time. It's just,
I think it's got to start with the kids. Get the kids involved. And my nipper plays at Havant in the under sevens, and a lot of people that he plays with have never been involved in rugby before in their life. Their parents just took them down to the local rugby club and they love it.
Yeah.
They love the atmosphere. We went on our first tour this year to the Isle of Wight.
Did you?
Which was brilliant.
What clubs?
It was, what do they call when they all play together on the Isle of Wight? Vectis.
That's it.
So we done that on a Sunday, which was really good. But
was that played in Ryde or was that in Sandown? Sandown's normally got their decent pitch. Sandown and Shanklin have got.
I think it was at Isle of Wight Rugby's.
Oh, okay.
Clubs
Yeah.
Pitch. I mean, I don't know the geography of the Isle of Wight too well, but
as long as it weren't Vendor, like that, pretty much France.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
The things like that, like the touring, like stuff, and like it being, everyone goes somewhere together. All the families are there. You take your other kids, and it's just like just real great fun and brilliant to be around. My best memories of rugby are going on rugby tours of Gosport every year to France. Made friends for life. All your parents are there. You know, they're best mates. Like, you don't really have that in football, and I wish more people could see that.
Yeah.
And you could get more people involved in that, because I know people would love it. Like, it's such a great atmosphere to be brought up around as a kid.
Looping back through to the Petersfield journey, you've got a couple more promotions to go, as you've said. Do you see yourself going up through the leagues as a coach? Like, you've set your stand. You know you're playing. Could you see yourself getting to a Nat 1 coach, because you know how to play that level, and you said you're comfortable with that? Have you got aspirations to get up there, or is that just one of them? You'll see how it goes, or do you think actually I could probably make a mark in that level?
I'd like to coach at the level I played at. So be it somewhere in the national leagues, would be my ambition. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out.
Yeah,
I definitely would like to have a crack at coaching the level I played at.
Yeah.
Definitely, that would be the ceiling. But very, very happy with my being at Petersfield, committed again for next year.
Brilliant.
Because it's just a really great place to sort of earn my spurs. Brilliant club that's going places. But yeah, certainly in the future, hopefully it's a long path for me. Plenty of games to coach, plenty of seasons in me. I'd definitely like to coach the level I played at. Yeah.
I'm going to try and finish on a little cliffhanger or a little hand grenade here. When you're going to hang up the boots then, or is that still going to be the one last? Is that the 2 seasons of promotion? Then when you get to where you need to be for Petersfield, is that the time? Or
I promised my wife I'd play 2 years as a player coach, and then that'll be done. So
we've all promised wives a lot of things though.
But then I managed to break my thumb quite badly. In the third last game of the season, I had pins and plates put in it. So she didn't say it, but she was looking at me, and I thought her eyes were saying, "You've got to grow up now, Liam." So it's, I don't know. I don't know if I'll play next year or not. Maybe I'll do the pre-season, see where I am. But certainly next year, if I do play, would be the last season. Yeah.
Fair enough. So you
36 by the end of next year. So
God, getting on a bit, mate, now, wouldn't you? So,
yeah.
But I'm sure you can still plough your trade there pretty well if you can get them through the leagues. So obviously
it's been very enjoyable. It's been really enjoyable playing coaching. So I've still got the buzz and still got the love for it. So
the next season's what sort of team? You're obviously going to have to get on the coach a lot. You're going to have to get around a little bit more and
bit more travelling. So we got the likes of Chichester, Salisbury, Newbury, which would be good to go back to Newbury. So there's a little bit more travelling. It's not anything too mad. A little bit. Wimborne, probably one of the further ones down that way. It's not too bad. I think we'll do okay. I think we'll have a good year.
It's the season after, isn't it? That's when you start racking up the air miles potentially.
Yeah, it will be. Yeah.
But okay, mate. Well, what an interview! Thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure. Pleasure.
Great to spread the word across the rugby community as well. So, I'm sure everyone that's listening as well is really appreciate your time as well, Liam. So cheers, mate.
No problem at all. All right, thank you. Cheers, mate.
Well, that brings this pod to an end. If you've made it this far, I just want to take a moment to thank you for listening right through and to express my gratitude for following yet another episode of Rugby Through the Leagues. So in today's episode, we discuss with Liam Perkins his career in the National Leagues of Rugby, his movement into coaching, and the massive support he has received at Petersfield to make that step a success. We found out how Joe Marchant ended up destroying teams in the second half of his spell at Worthing after a slow start. We also discussed the Petersfield chairman's aspirations to make Petersfield the best team in Hampshire, and Liam's journey to make sure that happens too. Liam also set out his ambitions to be able to coach at the same level he played at. So that'll be exciting to see whether that happens, whether it's at Petersfield or somewhere else. Next week, we have Ed Birch on from the Nags Charity Barbarians, where we discuss how the charity was founded and some of the amazing fundraising that they have carried out so far. A little snippet. The charity was founded when the founding members decided they could pull a canal barge the length of a marathon with the obvious detour to a pub en route. Really looking forward to sharing that interview with you all next week. Once again, a huge thank you to you all for tuning in. Thank you and goodbye.